Welcome back to another episode of Bringing Back the Glory with Glenn and Callum. This week's episode, unfortunately, there is no club football, boo.
Yeah.
But we've got international football to look forward to. Yay! Well, unless COVID ruins it for Scotland, which might happen.
It's very
Well,
possible.
very possible, but we know not a lot of you tend not to like international football, so we thought we would fill your week with some Dons-related content. This week we look back, we should say, on the transfer activity at Aberdeen, and we will also be discussing stories that listeners and viewers have kindly submitted, whilst also discussing both myself and Callum's stories and interactions with Aberdeen players, including some quite comical ones on night outs. So tune in for that. So as I said, we'll look at the transfer activity. The transfer window closed on Monday night, slammed shut. We should have had our Jim White yellow ties on, Callum, for this one.
I didn't think of that. I've been wearing a suit lately in my videos as well.
Yeah,
I don't have a yellow tie, that's the problem.
it's not a cup final though, is it?
Exactly. Maybe if we get to cup final for this, I'll maybe bring it out. You never know.
Yeah, so that's a good idea. But let's look at the transfer window. What was your thoughts on a transfer window as a whole, the incomings and outgoings?
Very happy actually. I think as a whole, well, especially now, that slammed shut, and we've got the backup keeper in as well. So important that Thomas Cheney's injured. Very, very good. I think we've improved the squad in all areas that needed improving. The one place I did sort of think was the sort of left back / centre back cover, and we've got that in Greg Leigh. So I'm happy. What about yourself?
Yeah, and I think, it's kind of something we discussed on last week's show after the Friday night game against St Mirren. We kind of highlighted that area in defence of a potential weakness, and it would be good to get some form of cover. And a lot of folk thought, well, we need a centre half in. I know maybe we've not signed an out-and-out centre back, but Greg Leigh knows the squad, knows the league, and I listened to his interview on Red TV, and he says he's comfortable playing in a back three on the left side. So, that's good for us, especially, what was touched on last week with injuries. It's good to have that strength and depth, and something I think last season we definitely lacked. And it's another positive signing. There's no real negatives around it, I don't feel.
No, I don't think so either. And I think actually when McInnes signed Leigh originally, it was said that he could play on the left side of a three. And it does sort of offer when, obviously, on the right-hand side, we had Hoban bombing down the right-hand side, and Constantine's never going to do that these days. Not so much anyway. He sometimes forays forward. But Greg Leigh does offer that sort of balance to it as well, which is nice.
Yeah. So if we look at the incomings, firstly, we only signed one player, Johnny Hayes. I know some people will probably want to correct us and say Ross McCrory, but initially he's on a loan until the end of the season. So one signing, but initially I was probably in the sceptical camp on Johnny Hayes. Oh, we don't need him, he's too old, blah, blah, blah. But standout performer so far this season.
Yeah, I've been very impressed. Obviously, one sort of long term, he was first in the door. I've been very impressed with that down that left hand side. And obviously, it's 33, so he will be getting on a bit. So Greg Leigh, a bit of competition in there might even push him on even further. So you never know. Could be better things to come from Johnny Hayes.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously, class act of him not taking the deal to be paid this year as well. So always nice gestures in these times. We've signed a few players on loan as well. Tommy Hoban we've touched on many a time on this show. Ross McCrory probably equally as many times, both standouts. Marley Watkins, Ryan Edmondson, Greg Leigh, obviously we've just mentioned, and then Gary Woods in from Oldham as backup to Thomas Cherney. I think we should shout out Gary Woods on Twitter, who managed to fool the club into retweeting him when he pretended to be the goalkeeper, Gary Woods.
I got excited. I went on to check that, and I was like, this isn't right. But no, that's obviously a lot of short-term signings in there, but obviously with Leigh and Hoban, wouldn't have signed if there wasn't the basically idea of if you stay fit, you get the longer deal. So that's fine by me. But yeah, I'm very, very impressed. And I think if we can keep Watkins and Edmondson perhaps to the end of the season as well, it'll be even better.
Yeah, I was going to say most of these players, McCrory aside, are only really, tied up till January. Out of those, would you kind of hope we keep them all, or, a few? I think certainly Watkins and Edmondson have showing potential up top. We've got obviously Curtis Main, Sam Cosgrove coming back from their injuries, and it'll be interesting again, I suppose, with Cosgrove to see what happens in January if he, stays fit and gets a run at games and gets back to scoring goals.
Yeah, I'd be happy for him to stay until the end of the season, especially if, I suppose, Bruce Anderson's loan maybe stake does go until the end of the season as well. I think there is an option to recall him in January. But there's a good point you raised about Cosgrove. If he goes in January, then I think it's vital to keep Edmondson and Watkins, not only because they're playing well, but also because to then get in a striker in January who then probably take a couple of games to get going, it wouldn't be ideal, whereas they can carry on from where they've started off.
Yeah, and I think my concern about the players we've just listed, these are all regular starters. Obviously, Greg Leigh and Woods were just signed on Monday, but Leigh could potentially fit into that back three. I know there's a lot of people aren't big fans of Ash Taylor. I'll defend him at unless he does something drastically wrong. But I think the signing of Greg Leigh could see Constantine move into centre half and Greg Leigh go into the left side of that back three. But with those players all potentially leaving in January, obviously we hope not, it does cause some concern that, these regular starters then, move on and we're left kind of rebuilding halfway through a season, especially in a season of these times that you never know what could happen come January.
It would be hell on earth if Tommy Hoban and Greg Leigh both left us after regaining fitness in Jan and then just abandoned us in January. We were left without them. But I've got a feeling basically they were signed on the idea of play. If you're fit, then you'll get the longer deal and you'll stick around. I think that's probably the idea because I know Hoban's got a young family anyway. I don't know whether they're up here, but I don't think he would ideally like to spend too much time away from them if it wasn't a potential long-term thing. And obviously Greg Leigh coming back from living in Holland as well. A bit of a change to just be up here just for 6 months. So hopefully they'll stick around. I'm praying.
Yeah, not even 6 months. It's only 3 months till January.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. A 3-month contract. How often do you see players signed on that?
I think it's a good point about Hoban. I think I did see on social media this week that we have potentially offered him an extended deal. So hopefully, that was Cormac listening to us telling him to get that deal on the table and get that checkbook.
We hold a lot of weight. We hold a lot of power here.
Yeah, I know. Actually, we're still waiting for Lisa to get back to us on a few interviews that we're lining up.
Oh God, yeah. Fingers crossed, pull through.
Yeah. So there's also been outgoings. One you touched on there was Bruce Anderson, signed with Ayr United and scored 2 on his debut. What was your thoughts on Bruce going out on loan? Kind of needed deal for him personally?
I think with him sort of being behind Cosgrove, definitely Edmondson, Watkins, and then probably Main as well, he did need to go out on loan. Ideally, it would have been a Premiership club. Maybe it is a bit of a problem, shows lack of progress, maybe since his last loan was to the Championship as well with Dunfermline, and it's still just the Championship just now. But the most important thing is playing against men every week. First team football, getting those minutes in, and hopefully the goals he'll carry on with them as well. It's a positive move, I think, and hopefully he can kick on now.
Yeah, I think you raised a good point actually in discussion with myself when the deal was announced, that he'll get a good test against Hearts, especially. Well, you've seen Stephen Naismith's tackle last night, that big physical team. Inverness, Dundee as well. It'll be good to see how he gets on against that level in the Championship because, like you said, playing against men, getting kicked about, and see how he copes. And hopefully kicks on and continues scoring goals and then comes back with a correct attitude. It's not to say he's not had the right attitude at Aberdeen, but something's not right in terms of he's not being able to impress the manager, not to force his way into the team. So it'd be good to see that from him. We've also had a few more youngsters depart us. Jack McKenzie's gone to Forfar on loan for the season. Miko Bertanen and Michael Ruth, we touched on in a previous episode, going to Arbroath. I noticed Bertanen started the League Cup tie last night. Michael Ruth was on the bench. I didn't see if he got any minutes, but I did see from the Arbroath Twitter page when he played in a pre-season friendly, did come on and was apparently quite impressive. Not scoring, but I think he's only 19, so it's good to see someone of that age, putting himself about, again, Championship level, so it'll be good to see how he gets on. And Ethan Ross also going down to the Championship with Wraith Rovers. These are guys that have been in the youth squad, obviously no reserve league this season, but vital for these guys to get away and get minutes, or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely think it's only a good sign. Obviously, I think loans are more beneficial at any stage rather than playing for the reserves, because it is against sort of actual fully grown men, and it gets that match experience of what it'd be like to play for Aberdeen, I suppose, against tougher opposition. Let alone when there is no reserve fixtures at all. But even if Ruth is going to be a fixture off the bench, it'd be better him being there and coming off the bench for them rather than, doing nothing here. So hopefully they all can kick on. A very good move, I think, for Ethan Ross, especially at Wraith. Obviously, he was at Dunfermline as well, so it's a rival. But I think it'd be good, and it's interesting as well. Some of them will be competing against each other. Obviously, Anderson in the Championship, Ethan Ross in the Championship, and then Vertanen and Ruth as well. So maybe a bit of competitive edge to that as well, which would be nice.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how they get on. Obviously, the big summer departure was Craig Bryson, so the ghost is gone.
I think the less said about that, the better, to be honest. He's off the wage bill, that's the main thing.
Exactly. Overall, though, the transfer window this season has kind of been a bit of a strange one, given the current climate we're in. Do you think it's been a successful window for Aberdeen as a whole?
I definitely think it's definitely been solid. We're definitely strong. I've said definitely about 3 times there. We're stronger as a squad 100% than we were this time last season. So I think that's a benefit. And the system as well. We're playing in a good system. I'm very happy, to be fair. And that it's not like me. So I think that's a very good sign.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing you touch on there is the strength of the squad. And I think it's fair to say a lot of Aberdeen fans do feel we've got a stronger squad. But I also feel we've got a deeper squad where we've got experience in areas. We touched on that on Friday night. Dylan McGee, not even getting off the bench. McGinn obviously started, but that's quite an experienced head if he does drop back to the bench when players are fit again. Got competition in all places, I feel now, with Greg Leigh coming in to kind of contest this centre of defence, back three, whatever you want to call it. Competition on the right-hand side for Logan. You've got Hernandez, international for Venezuela, still can't get into the team. Matty Kennedy's been in that position. So it's good to see healthy competition, players playing well. And, I think McGinn said against Sporting Lisbon, these players that can get on, they've got to go and grab the opportunity when they can get it. So, again, that can only be a bonus for us.
Definitely, and there's obviously still Kennedy to come back from injury, Devlin and Cosgrove. But interesting you mentioned Hernandez. I saw on social media today, apparently McInnes might be looking and putting him out on loan if he can't force his way into the team by January. It's a bit of a concern, really.
Yeah, it is, and it's one of the listeners, viewers, Keith. He mentioned that it could be he's struggling with English and it's communication with his teammates. It was actually a point I never thought, and that could be quite important during game time. But I saw Ewan Stewart mention that he would have him in his starting 11. Not for me, considering what we've seen so far this season. Just because he's an international doesn't make him good enough. But these players need chances to prove how good they are, and hopefully, if it has to be a loan for Hernandez to prove that, then so be it. It's a tricky one given the the rumoured figures that we've spent on him. We can't really afford for that to be a flop. So hopefully we see some reward from that.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I would love for it to work out. I would love nothing more. Yeah, exactly. I think everyone would, to be fair. But it's just, for whatever reason, I think that is a good point, possibly. Because especially if you move from, if you went from Venezuela to Norway and then to Scotland, if you speak in Spanish, you try to learn English. If you move to England, you maybe got a better chance of working it out. But you're playing with Lewis Ferguson, Ross McCrory, very thick, broad accents. It's not going to go well.
Yeah, I don't blame him for struggling to understand some of the players that we've got. But an encouraging transfer window, and hopefully we see Greg Leigh make his debut next weekend against Dundee United, and we'll preview that game in full next week. Obviously, we don't have a game to review or preview this week, so what we decided to do was put a question out to the listeners and viewers to get your stories of meeting Aberdeen players, whether it be on a night out, on holiday, which we've got, and just funny stories just to fill some content for those missing Aberdeen. And, we want to thank those of you that submitted pictures. You'll probably see these if you're watching the YouTube video, and also sharing the stories with us and allowing us to then share them with our listeners and viewers. So we've got a range of topics. We'll just go through our favourite stories, both personal and the ones that have been shared. So starting off with weirdest place you have met an Aberdeen player, Callum.
I've not had many weird locations, but definitely the weirdest scenario was I think it was my 19th birthday night out. We'd gone bad shirt, I won't swear, and so it's sort of mostly Hawaiian numbers, walking down Justice Mill Lane in November, and we see Willie Miller, and I'm absolutely hammered by this point, and I'm going up to him, and can I get a photo? And I'm bleating out all this nonsense. My dad was in Gothenburg, blah, 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 all this stuff. Oh, thank you so much for everything you've done. And thinking back to it, very, very embarrassing. Not a weird location, but such a weird scenario. Must be thinking, what the hell's going on? Like, 15 people wearing like Hawaiian shirts in November. Mayhem.
Disappointed that shirt didn't make an appearance tonight, actually.
I should have done it. It's in the cupboard back there, but I'm not going to bring it out. But maybe later at some stage, another show, if there's a reason for it,
When we get Europe at the end of the season, a celebratory.
Yeah, maybe that or the suit. Maybe that'll do. But what about yourself? Any weird locations for yourself?
The strangest one for me was meeting Steve Lovell in the doctor's surgery. He was waiting to get a scan on an injury picked up at the weekend. I honestly can't remember why I was there. I don't even know if it was me that was getting the treatment or if I'd just gone, for the sake of being in a doctor's surgery. Who knows? Weird places I hung around as a child.
Go for a visit? Yeah.
Just nosy. But I still managed, I don't know where I found the scrap bit of paper. I actually think it was my homework diary from school because, I went to Robert Gordon's, posh and all that. We had diaries to put our homework in.
Oh.
I managed to get him to sign that for his autograph. So that was really random and strange. I bet that's the last place he thought he'd be signing autographs.
Yeah, poor guy was just going to get some medical attention and he's getting pestered by little Gordon's boy.
Yeah. But we've had some submissions from you guys at home. Matt Cool said he met Darren Mackey at a Calvin Harris gig in Liquid. For our younger viewers, that is now called Attic, or for some slightly older ones, maybe you know it as Institute, but thankfully I knew it as Liquid. But I think that's brilliant. Meeting a player and just randomly putting your arm around him, telling him how ace he is in the middle of a gig with Calvin Harris. I'm sure both Matt and Darren were thinking, what the hell is going on here? And he also said he met Chris Clark buying face cream in Boots the day we were drawn to Bayern Munich. Chris Clark probably quickly determined to make sure he looked as good as the Germans he was going to be coming up against.
Definitely. I think it's quite a weird detail to remember about that encounter, that specifically he was buying face cream. But I don't know what's more random. The fact he believed, anyway, you remembered he was buying face cream, but the fact Calvin Harris played Liquid, that seems quite odd to me.
Yeah.
Back in the day. My favourite, I think, of the submissions was from Joe Stephen. And it's very Joe Stephen, the fact that he was at WrestleZone. Fair play to him. But the fact he met John Hewitt there, that is quite bizarre. I think that's definitely the weirdest of the submissions. Definitely my favourite. I don't even know what WrestleZone is. I don't know what sort of calibre of wrestlers are there. But the fact him and John Hewitt was there is my favourite.
I can't imagine John Hewitt enjoying wrestling, watching folk fly off the top rope and then pinning the opposition. It would just be hilarious to see. But like you say, very typical of Joe.
Yeah, maybe that's John Hewitt's thing. That's what he likes to do in his spare time,
Maybe. And on Facebook, we got a submission from Callum Stewart. And after seeing what Alan Tate did at the weekend to I think it was Birmingham member of staff where he grabbed him by the throat, I think Callum can count himself lucky it was just pita bread. So in Nando's, Alan Tate was throwing pita bread at Callum because he'd seen Callum slagging Jamie Langfield and the club off on social media. Very petulant, but judging by how strung up Alan Tate was at the weekend, maybe he got away quite lucky. Yeah,
I think he was definitely lucky to get away without any injuries there. But not very professional of Alan Tate, may I add.
No, I thought that as well. I mean, you're going to get abuse whether you play well or not. but to take it in that level is, yeah, very, very strange.
Especially seeing as we once witnessed Alan Tate clear a ball off Leigh Griffith's leg and then let it run back through his legs to walk back towards keeper. Seemed to be the coolest man in the world at that stage.
Yeah.
And he's lost it. He's lost it. Don't know what's happened since.
Yeah. Short fused man, probably short man syndrome actually.
It could be, yeah, he's not the tallest
It'll
man.
be on to us now if he's watching this.
Yeah, sorry, Alan. I didn't mean any of it. Please don't hurt me.
So that's the stories of the weirdest places, and the next stories we're going to cover is your days out and nights out. Now, there's bound to be some crackers that folk have thought I'm definitely not sharing for getting in trouble. You know, I've seen some pictures of the League Cup celebrations where Joe Shaughnessy was, I don't know if he was top man of a human pyramid celebrating the League Cup win. That was quite funny that night out anyway. But some of the submissions that we've had was one from Ryan Webster saying he gave Barry Robson a lift home one night in Inverurie, and the soundest piece of advice Barry Robson could give him was the most important things in life are birds and money. And if this story kills our chance of interviewing Barry Robson, well, I can just say what a line of importance to a life motto that is.
I know, hope it's worth it. That's words of wisdom from Barry Robson. That impeccable. I wouldn't expect anything less of the man.
Yeah.
I would say there was a couple more entries for that. Some of my favourite ones from the night out. It's definitely the favourite photo I got submitted was the one of Grant Heath on the night out in Dusk, I believe he said. Dusk, if you want to sponsor us, fancy, go for it. Some free rums, I'll take it. He was wearing a Star Wars shirt and he was just out having a nice time. Saw Sam Cosgrove and they just hit it off, started talking about Star Wars the whole time. That is both wholesome. The whole photo is wholesome and the story is just wholesome. I love it all.
For me, it's the fact that Cosgrove watches and understands Star Wars. Now, I'm not a Star Wars fan. I couldn't think of anything worse. So there's an unpopular opinion. I'm just going to launch into this episode. But the fact that Cosgrove's a huge fan blew my mind.
Star Wars is great. And Sam's obviously got better taste than you do.
Well, he probably doesn't. Depends if he listens to this or not. We'll decide how good his taste really is.
Very smart. Good idea. And what about yourself? Have you got any stories from your personal nights out, Ryan?
Yes. Mainly from the Player of the Year is probably my worst night out story. Obviously, there was the video of me asking Max Lowe to say he wasn't leaving, which kind of went semi-viral. And then obviously he just didn't listen to his own advice and left anyway. So that's a shame. But after a few beverages, too many, I went up to Stephen Gleeson, asked him for a photo and asked him, are you enjoying your time at Aberdeen? To which he said, kind of, but I'm frustrated I'm not getting a chance. To which I turned around and said, I can't believe it because I think you're better than Graham Shinney. I think you deserve a chance.
How drunk were you, may I ask?
Very, very drunk. When you get free booze on the table, you have to take advantage of it. Especially when no one else was drinking the wine,
Oh, wine drunk as well. Jesus,
yeah.
That must have been bad. I did see Stephen Gleeson. I think this sums up his time at Aberdeen. I was just walking. I think I was going to get some food after a night out and walked past a certain kebab shop. And who's in there just by himself, just getting some food? Stephen Gleeson at about 3 a.m. in the morning, looking after himself, as you can imagine. But not my favourite story from meeting a player. For myself, me, Sean Neville, Jack Charlton, we were in an establishment that is now closed. I will rename nameless. And we were out. It was all having a good time. And then who's there? Oh, it's Ash Taylor and India Taylor and some other players out for Idnox. Oh, I said I'm going to bleep that. I'm going to bleep that. I'm ashamed to say I was in that establishment. And then, we were just speaking to them, got some photos. Me and Sean thought we were very, very funny in asking Curtis Main to take a photo of us instead of us getting a photo with him. Very embarrassing looking back on it. But it got worse. We're walking down Union Street and James Wilson's there and we hadn't had a photo with James Wilson. So we went, James Wilson, come and get a photo, and he said, "Only if you pick me up." So it's we posted it on social media and it was quite funny. But looking back on it, what was he thinking? Just could have been like, yeah, get a photo quickly. Only if you pick me up. So there's just a photo of me and Sean just holding James Wilson aloft, and somehow he didn't get injured. So that was probably the most exciting part of that story.
If you are listening to this episode on Spotify, Podbean, Anchor, whatever your platform is, I urge you to check out the YouTube video or Callum's socials and see the photo for yourself, because it is quite incredible.
Simply sublime. And we've got also, if you go on the video version, you will see the video now. I'll make sure I put it in now, of Ian Brown, his glasses being worn by Danny Ward in, where was it, Glenn?
Babylon. I don't even know if that's open anymore. It's kind of extension or a part of college. I only was in it once. But yeah, there you go. For again, you younger viewers who probably don't know where that is.
Yeah, that was
that is a very funny video. But your story actually reminded me of a story my sister had on a night out, where Don Ball tried to chat her up, and by saying that he worked at Pataudry, to which she replied, "What do? Do you just sell the tickets?"
That is amazing. I think I love the fact he tried to like hint that he was a player, but he didn't want to seem too big time by going, "Oh, I play for Aberdeen." So, "Oh, I work at Pataudry," and then your sister's going, "Oh, sell tickets." That's great.
Just like, I don't even care who you are. You know, he was from London. She used to live in London, so he was probably thinking, "Oh, here we go. This is getting on like a house on fire. I'll try and subtly drop in that I play for Aberdeen," and totally wrong. And I think my other favourite one, we should shout out a few of your friends at the Broadstrake, support local pubs during this time. Broadstrake regular, Gary Forbes, walks in one night, sees Scott McKenna having a quiet drink and goes, "All right, Andy Considine, how's it going?" Without even saying anything, smiles back at him and doesn't think to correct him.
I don't know how. They don't even look similar. It's just left-sided defenders.
But for those of you that know Gary, will know how obvious a mistake that was for him to make.
Iconic. What a man. Yeah. And what did you get up to in London again?
Oh, yes, that's a good point, Callum. Thanks for remembering me. I'll also shout out his Donald Trump impression. He liked to tell everyone that Donald Trump was building a wall and how huge it was going to be. Wow. I won't do it because I don't do it justice. Wow. But we nearly forgot probably our joint favourite submission of the stories. It's not a night out story. It was submitted by Paige, who met Sam Cosgrove and Greg Leigh in Ibiza. And instead of asking both players for a photo, she proceeded just to ask Sam for a photo of her and her friend. Greg Leigh took exception to this and proceeded just to throw pool water at them for the rest of the day. Now, that is a level of pettiness I can fully support from Greg.
Definitely. I think she said he kept capsizing them as well, so they must be on like a lilo or something. So it's even worse, just assault at this stage.
Full on going out of his way to get levels of pettiness in. Your story as well about Curtis Main taking a photo, that also reminds me of another story, was at Partick Thistle away. Niall McGinn was in the crowd with his agent. And again, had a few pre-match drinks, and I thought, oh, here he is. I'll go and pester him for 15 minutes at half-time. So me and my friend Danny Mackay thought, well, we'll go and ask him for a photo. But similarly to you, we said, can we get a photo? And then proceeded to hand him the phone to take a photo of me and Danny instead. Much to everyone's amusement, apart from Niall's, but fair play to him, he was a good sport and he did oblige and take the photo, and we then, said, okay, that's fine, you can now take a photo with us if you want. To which I think he still was like, sorry, you want a photo with me or?
I don't know, I love how we've both done this, but I don't know what was going through either of our heads at the time. We both had completely separate occasions, completely different people. but we
It's
both
also
thought,
not funny when
yeah.
you say it out loud, but it is at the time.
At the time when me and Sean did it with Curtis Main, I think it was especially funny because we thought it was Curtis Main. We're like, oh, it'll be really funny. But I think we did end up getting a photo with him anyway. But I don't know what is going through our heads at these moments where we think, this is hilarious. Top comedy.
Yeah. Well, that's the stories of your nights out, days out. Was some really good submissions there, and like we've said, you'll see the photos, videos on the YouTube channel, on Callum's YouTube channel there. But the last category we've got is mascots and halftime entertainment. Callum, I think you've got your story of when you were a mascot.
I was a mascot in 2009. I think it was December 2009, maybe. So what was I? 9, 10 years old. I think 9, 10, 10. And we were playing Hearts in the Scottish Cup, and it was under Mark McGee. So things hadn't been going so well,
Yeah.
but it was simply sublime. We won 2-0. We beat them in the Scottish Cup. It was great. Even better because I got a couple of Hearts fans supporting friends, basically. But so I do have a photo with Mark McGee, which obviously the relationship went very sour very quickly after that. Don't know how much longer he lasted, but it was a great time. I got to meet all the players. Met Mark Kerr. He was the captain at the time. Got some photos with them all. But when I was running out from the tunnel, I don't know why, but I had the perception, I think because I used to sit in the Merkland, that this tunnel was like sort of in the centre of the stand. So I just ran straight out, and you see like Mark Kerr sort of yanking on me to run towards the centre circle. So that wasn't good. But I did get to keep the £2 coin from the coin toss. So that was good. I've still got it to this day.
Wow. I thought it was just like a 10p.
No, £2 coin, and the referee let me keep it. I think it was, I can't remember his name. I can't remember
Big
what.
spender of a referee if he's willing to chuck away £2.
I know. And
Definitely not Aberdeen, yeah.
Yeah, and Michael Stewart was the Hearts captain as well. That's basically the details I remember from the day. And Christian Nadi played for Hearts. And also Maurice Ross played for us that day. And the only thing I remember him doing for Aberdeen in his whole time here was, I thought it was really, really clever at the time, and I really enjoyed it. He just launched the ball off a Hearts player so he could win another throw-in to waste time. That was it. That's all I remember.
I want to know who you said your favourite player was. You know, when it gets announced at halftime, like when the mascot's out, and today's mascot's Callum Wright, and his favourite player is, especially during that time.
I can't remember who it was. I remember once when I was, when you get your birthday announced and you say your favourite player, my mum and dad told them it was Andres Felichka because his daughter had started going to Ferry Hill, and we were like, "Oh, Andres Felichka!" So but I can't remember who I said at the time. Maybe I think Chris Maguire was maybe still about, so maybe I said him or something like that. Can't quite remember. Good old Bebo.
Yeah. Well, there's another story submitted by Macaulay Hill, who was a mascot during the Mark McGee. I think actually the other mascot story is also Mark McGee. I could be wrong though. But he was a mascot for the infamous, actually it was his first game in charge, very infamous 5-1 defeat at the hands to Sigma Olomouc. And his day was ruined because he didn't get to meet the players because obviously we lost so badly that Mark McGee wouldn't let anybody in at full time to meet the players because he was going so mental. But fair play to Macaulay for staying back that late. I think I was probably home before the full time whistle. I was that angered at that result.
That must have been a horrible day to be mascot.
Yeah, and sorry to everyone for bringing such terrible results like that up.
Yeah, sorry for bringing the bad memories, but I mean, poor Macaulay. He's just wanted to meet the players. He's like, "Oh, it's my mascot. We might win and be exciting." No, horrific,
Yeah,
horrific.
truly horrific. And then we had Bruce Lamb, who was the mascot at Dean Windus's testimonial in Hull, who's got some great pictures. I think it's with Derek Young, when he was, I think, the captain that day. And then he met him a few years later on a night out. And was it you said Derek Young actually looks younger?
Yeah, I don't know how, but he did, and it must be a decent amount of years later. Because obviously, Bruce was a kid when he was mascot, and then obviously he was old enough to go out and drink. So I'm presuming he was at oldest. He doesn't look at the photo more than sort of 10, and then to 18. And somehow Derek Young, I don't know what, he's maybe got Chris Clark's face cream because he was looking a lot younger than he did originally. And fair play to the lad.
Yeah, and he wasn't supposed to go in to the dressing room before the game because the manager was delivering the team talk, but he thought he would chance his luck, got in, sat on the bench and just listened to the team talk pre-match, which I think is a great story. Just to have that nerve and just think, we'll just do what I want anyway.
Yeah, it's my day and no one's going to ruin it for me.
I've come all the way to Hull. I will do what I want.
Yeah, I don't blame him. I honestly don't blame him. It's a shame Macaulay didn't get such privileges.
Oh, should have just took things into his own hands like Bruce did.
Imagine. Oh, I wouldn't have liked to have upset Mark McGee on that day even more.
No. No, well, my story is should have been such a good day. Was halftime entertainment against St Mirren in the cup quarter final of the League Cup because it was a midweek game, and we lost again. So again, sorry for bringing up the bad memories. Lost on penalties, so that's how great a game it was. And the halftime challenge was you had to run from the halfway line with the ball and shoot past the keeper. And if you scored the goal, you won a prize. So we find out just beforehand at halftime. I think we went into halftime 0-0, and the prize was corporate at the semi-final. And obviously, folk are like, well, I don't really want corporate. And then someone said, well, what happens if we don't get to the semi-final? Which obviously we didn't. Then what happened? So it turned out that if we didn't, it would have been corporate at a home game of your choice. So, good prize, for free, given the cost of corporate. But corporate's also a good day out for those that haven't done it.
I've never
So,
done it.
really good. Did it for my 21st. Highly recommend.
I would do it for my 21st, but there's nothing's going to happen because it's next month, so I'm not really doing anything.
Yeah, shame. So the halftime challenge, like I said, was you get the ball in the halfway line and run to the edge of the box, into the box, and score past the keeper. I can't remember who the keeper was. If it was Jim Leighton or not, or if it was somebody relatively famous or infamous, who knows. So I think I was the last player to go, and I don't know about yourself, when you ran out as mascot, I didn't realise how far it is from the tunnel to the halfway line. And when you're standing in the centre circle, how big Pataudry feels compared to when you're sitting in the stands.
Yeah, it's deceptive. It is deceptive. And having actually played up Pataudry as well and lost, and I played very badly, it felt like an even bigger pitch that day.
So it's a cold night, and I'm standing there. The fourth guy's gone and scored, and I think only 3 folk had scored. So I was like, okay, like if I miss, it's fine. I'm not the only person to miss. And looking around, going, oh, this is nerve-wracking. So you can hear the subs warming up, going, oh, check a state of them, like, or good finish and that. So take my first touch is heavy as anything, and my right foot gets stuck on the halfway line. So I'm like, what kind of trip? And all I hear is the whole of Pataudry going, hey! And the next thing and that's it. Bottle's gone already. They're in my head. So God knows how these professionals deal with me and you shouting abuse at them constantly, because one trip and I was gone. Get to the edge of the box, and I turned into Darren Mackey. I was like, too much time, didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like, will I put it under his legs? Will I go round him? And I thought, nah, I'm going out in style here. I'm going to chip the keeper. And then pretty much I should have just passed it to him. It was that bad. I just dinked it into his hands. He was like standing there thinking, what are you doing? Just caught the ball. And I could hear folk laughing. Some folk were going, oh, like sympathetic, like from some elements of the crowd. And I was just like, just get me off.
It's like every young boy's dream to score at the senior sports stadium, and you obviously didn't end up playing for them, as most people don't.
Mm-hmm.
And then, oh, here's my chance, I'll score up Tawdry, and then getting off to such a bad start of the trip. Oh, that cannot be good.
It was like the RDS end as well. The end you kind of dream of scoring at as well, and yeah, it just went totally wrong. But then, I did get a better memory when I was involved in the Community Trust Charity Day out for the Inverurie flood appeal, and playing against the likes of Barry Robson, Steve Tosh, marking Eugene Daddy at a corner. That was an experience and a half. So countered bad and good, but certainly the experience on the hallowed turf didn't go the way I'd hoped.
Oh dear. I think before we round off this episode, we have a special mention to Fraser Wallace. He gave a lot of submissions for in his referee days. Obviously, he will be meeting a lot of players who are playing today. Gothenburg greats as well. He refereed locally. So I think there's enough stories for a podcast in its own. So Fraser, if you're listening, if you fancy it, we'll maybe get you on to get the whole tale of all the tales, a whole podcast of all the tales. So I think that could be a package and a
Because
half.
we know how much of that Scotland international fan you are, we'll maybe even incorporate it into, hopefully, the playoff final podcast.
That would be amazing, but we could have possibly jinxed it. But it'd be
Yeah,
good. It'd be a good
I'm not
package.
going to blame him. I'm still going to blame COVID for. Well, I'm going to actually blame Stuart Armstrong again because once again he's ruined Scotland by passing COVID to players we could have really done with playing, like he did against England again. Since I'm just bringing up every bad memory possible, I'm just going to ruin folks' night again by bringing up that game where he, instead of lumping it into Rose Ed, just passes it away and we concede.
Is everything okay, Glenn? Are you okay?
I'm still not over it.
Fine.
I might as well fucking 4-3 Queen of the South whilst I'm at
Oh,
it.
what are you doing? Oh, no one's listening anymore. They've all switched it off. I'm not even gonna. I was gonna mention another one just for the fun of it, but I'm not even gonna do it because that'd be one step too far.
Yeah.
That was horrible, Glenn. I can't believe you just did that.
Well, anyway, I suppose can't end on a much worse note than mentioning that, but just like to say thanks again to those of you that took the time to submit your pictures, stories, and we really do appreciate it. We're kind of approaching 100 listens to the show, over 1,000 views of the show on YouTube, so we really do appreciate the continued support of all of you that tune in. And we will be back next week to look forward to club football again as Aberdeen prepare for a trip to Tannadice.
Perfect, thank you. And for all you watching on the YouTube videos, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more, and leave your comments down below. Any of the topics we covered, whether it's the football at the start or the more nonsensical stuff. And if you've got any more stories as well, why not submit them too? Thank you very much.